Moving on to item number 8 on the agenda, discussion regarding the ordinance amending Chapter 806 of the alcoholic liquor sales, placing a cap on the number of video gaming establishments, presented by Alderpersons Klim and Sellers.
Okay. Thank you very much. If we could, I had a lengthy conversation and a meeting today with Dovey regarding the gaming situation as it is right now, how it's been in the past, and what we look for to the future. One of the things I'd asked for, and have talked back and forth a little bit, is, and we mentioned in our budget end, was the fact that the Liquor Commission oversees a lot of this stuff, and the Liquor Commission has X number of members on it, and one of them is here tonight, Mr. Mahoney. And if we could, I'd just like to have, if it's possible, a conversation back and forth about the situation the way it is and how we look at gaming in the future, or how we should look at gaming in the future. So Tim, I appreciate you coming, because you're very knowledgeable on this and had some very good points when we first talked about it, so I appreciate that.
My honor to get to be here, to let me know how long I have. If I, you guys put time limits on me.
One of the things today we discussed was, and one of the reasons I originally brought this up was the fact that when I left the council, there were 16 gaming places, and now there's between 37 to 40, depending upon some of the people that are going to apply for them and some of the new establishments that are coming here. You know, so right off the bat, to me, that appeared to be, you know, a real problem, okay? But as we stop to look at it and go through some stuff, we're dealing with 4 or 5 different classes, and one of the classes the Liquor Commission has already eliminated, and that is the parlors, where a person can just go there to game, don't have to have food, don't have to have special requirements. We've got some that are grandfathered in. Dovey, tell me if I'm wrong on something here, but we have very few of those, and we aren't going to have any more of them. So there's a thing that could very easily pop up that that the commission basically has already put the stop on. There's a couple liquor stores, there's a couple taverns, but also we hit into our big areas where most of the gaming are in restaurants or in taverns that do a big volume in food business. As we know, the original go for was to increase tax and revenue from sales tax on not only on the gaming and that stuff, but also on the food and beverage end of it, was the reason they were put in. So there's our biggest share. Then the other thing we have is the convenience stores, which I can remember when I was just getting off the council, Tim and the Liquor Commission had a meeting with, at that time it was a couple of the heads of Shells that came to Freeport and proposed that their businesses would be great for this, simply because of the amount of sales that they do in products across the counter and in products that they do have. Both of the Shell stations do have food that they sell, and since then a couple others have came on board. So we do have a considerable variation in the types of businesses we have. One of the things that comes up that I see, and I see it to be a little bit of an issue, we'll be at a place here in say the next 6 months, if everything goes as people have put forward and said that they're looking at having a license, where we may end up with some licenses pretty close to each other. But we do have that on South Street already, with 2 next door to each other, and Semino's up the street and some out farther. So I believe as we look at this, my original thing was the numbers in it, but as we talked about it, I think some of the variation that maybe can be done or looked at is how we charge for licenses, how we do licenses, that licensing process, okay? And as Tim mentioned before, we're having it in 2 or 3 places already. The county is just letting anybody do anything right on our border. So that creates an issue of basically loss of revenue to us, okay? Jim, go ahead if you can.
Well, I think I'm doing a great job. so
Okay.
far.
Thank you.
So at the risk of being repetitive, we spent a tremendous amount of time when we took over as the Liquor Commission before we did anything. And, the mayor had given us direction as the Liquor Commissioner. These were the things that I wanted to do. I wanted to encourage business in general. I wanted to encourage downtown business. We wanted to eliminate unnecessary red tape, but we wanted to make sure that we still were safe, we were within our boundaries, we didn't do anything that was going to cause problems. We certainly made sure that everything was passed by with both the chiefs of police and all law enforcement, fire, and we always did that. So we did a whole bunch of inviting people in, and the first people that we brought in were the current license holders. And as I've indicated to you guys, we learned a lot about what they were worried about, because that was our first concern is, all right, if we open this up, so to speak, does that worry you all in terms of your current businesses? And the response that we got was kind of almost looking at us like we're idiots, like, no, that doesn't worry us at all. It's survival of the fittest. Whoever has the best business is going to get the customer, and they're going to be the ones that are successful. And the real disadvantage is if one person gets a license and one person doesn't, if they're not allowed the same level playing field. Our goal through this whole thing has always been a level playing field. And I think that's been kind of what the city council has been doing for several years, and I believe rightfully so. Like with the donut holes, when you brought everybody in, that was to level the playing field. When we did the annexations, which brought in a couple of parlors, we didn't get rid of them because they had rightfully done their businesses in the right way with what the opportunity that they had. They weren't in the city, so we didn't sunset them, but we did say there's not going to be any more of them. And I mean, and some of those businesses definitely helped our area. The one business on South Street by Semino's, I mean, that was a junk car lot since I was a kid, and now that's all cleaned up and looks great and is a thriving business. That's one of the ones that I've talked to you about that surprised me the most when I went to Sam Semino and I said, aren't you worried about a business going across the street that's doing the same thing? And he said, no, they're not doing the same thing. They're a parlor and I'm a restaurant. We get a different customer. We actually don't compete with each other. Now, right from the beginning, we understood that we didn't want to have parlors, but that doesn't mean we didn't look at them. So like one of the biggest days for me was when we talked to Loves Park. Loves Park gave a license at a very low price to anybody that wanted them. And they basically created their own mini Vegas Strip right down the center of Loves Park. If you wanted a license, you could have one. And the interesting thing was it didn't increase gaming activity. And eventually, the businesses that took the best care of their customers or responded to what their customer wanted lived, and the other ones went away. So I think one of the hindrances that can happen if you have a cap is you discourage competition. And you can actually keep a business afloat because they happen to be in an advantageous position, not because they're running a great business or doing a great job, but simply because they have something that somebody else doesn't have, and you're denying an opportunity to have a more thriving business come in that would actually create more tax dollars, maybe clean up an area that you've wanted to have cleaned up, something along those lines. So, I mean, obviously I can talk for a long time. That's the only thing I can do is talk. So really, the concerns, one of the biggest ones I think I hear you talking about is we don't want to just encourage more gaming. Am I right about that? We don't want everybody to just come game.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's part of the issue, yes.
So, one of the things I think you got to think about is we got to understand the things that we can control, but also understand the things that we can't. And, I stopped at Casey's last weekend when it was super hot to get a bag of ice, and I'm a former smoker. I smoked years and years ago, back when everybody my age smoked Marlboro Lights. And I looked behind the counter at Casey's, and there's literally an ocean of different types of tobacco products behind that counter. And I mean, if you think about it, that industry has been taxed and fined and sued and regulated like 10,000 times beyond any other industry has ever imagined. And it's like we've done nothing but dump fertilizer on them. They just keep turning profits on top of profits on top of profits. So sometimes you can regulate all you want, and it's not going to necessarily get the result that you're looking for. And I think if we got rid of gaming in the city, all you would do is make it so it just goes to the county. Now, Cook County did it where they did the whole county, a very large area, but even Cook County just got its first casino that just opened up over this past weekend, so they've even caved. So, I think we got to look at, in my humble opinion before you guys, I think we got to look at what can we control. And so the one thing we did that I really agree with is we didn't do parlors. We got rid of parlors. Those, we're not doing any more of those. So anybody that gets the license, wants to have gaming, has to pay the full $10,000, and they have to have 50% food and beverage. And we really look at that. I mean, they have to have somebody independent sign off on that. It's not just a rubber stamp. And if we look at it and we don't think that they're actually doing 50, if we look at it and go, how the heck is this person doing 50% food and beverage? We send them a note and say, you guys got to come in and talk to us about how you're doing that. And if they don't, one thing about the current liquor commission that you have is you got to remember, you have two former coppers on the current liquor commission. They're very much going to let you try to do what you can do within reason, as long as it makes sense and everybody signs off on it. But if you do something wrong and come in front of that commission on the rare occasion when that's happened, people that's happened for have had the hammer dropped on them. I mean, if you go out of line, things aren't going to go well. So there are ramifications if you don't follow the rules. I really agree with how we did that. I think, number one, it created revenue for the city. Number two, it encourages survival of the fittest. Number three, it creates a lot of tax dollars in terms of sale tax because you got to do 50% food and beverage. And it makes it so you have to have a really viable organization. You got to have a really viable business or you're not going to make it. You can't just have the machines that are just sitting there. We have enough of that with the parlors that we already have. Now, you do see a tick up in gaming, but it's commensurate with inflation. So, as we printed more money, you're going to have more gaming, but it's just because you have more money. You haven't really seen a dramatic increase, at least when we looked at those numbers, in overall gaming. Does that kind of answer that?
Tim, go ahead.
No, I think the reason why myself jumped on board was because when we first started talking, Tom, we talked about could our community handle that many more without not having the economy with the jobs and things like that. So I think that's where, when me and Tom first talked, that's what my look and take was. How many more of the gamings can we put out there to draw people to use their water bills or their electric bill money and thinking they're going to win, and what the outcome can be a lot of times. So that's what my main purpose was when we looked at the gaming, was more for the people out there that really can't afford it but we're putting a temptation. But then, like you said, people going to do what people want to do. So I do understand that because, like I said, I played. I stopped, but I played. But that's what my first focus was because, hey, what else is there to do, really?
Alderperson Sellers, I know how you feel. I felt the same way when I first went on the Liquor Commission. I had a lot of preconceived ideas of where I thought things should go, and I'm really proud of our work on the Liquor Commission. We put in a lot of time. We put in a lot of work. I think we made good decisions. And we did it completely independently. None of us speak to each other about the Liquor Commission outside of when we're sitting at that table. We don't ever call each other and talk about, hey, what do you think about this? Not that that would be inappropriate. But we don't. We come in and we sit down and we have our conversation right in front of anybody who wants to talk to us. And we'll talk to anybody that wants to talk to us. If you show up and raise your hand, we're more than happy to talk to you. And we did that a lot for the first year. Sure, Mr. Sanders, go ahead.
Oh, you know my name, okay.
Well, it's in front of you. So
Oh, okay. All
that
right.
helps me. I need all the help I can get.
I wonder, since we're talking on this subject, that, and this will probably have to go to a referendum in order to even entertain it. My thought is different, and we're trying to continue to raise revenue on taxes and things like that. But I wonder, has it been entertained to start, if gaming is so important to this city, you can accept it or reject it through a referendum and see how it rolls out. Now, my idea was, and I don't know if you guys thought about it, having a little mini casino right here in the heart of Freeport as a tax source. I just threw that out there, and I just want to see how you guys feel about that.
Put a boat on the Peck.
I just want to see what will it look like for Freeport, on a large scale. Our
lawyer's
scale is not too large, but
Your lawyer's got to comment.
okay.
With regards to the casino question about like a general casino, that's very highly regulated by the state and by the federal government. So as Mr. Mahoney mentioned, Chicago was granted one, Rockford was granted one through long application processes. So the city of Freeport cannot just create a mini casino like a Hard Rock Hotel, casino or anything like that. So.
Okay, well, it was just a thought.
Well,
But we can entertain it, though, at any time, Just because the application is long doesn't mean we can't challenge it.
Alderman Shadle.
It's interesting to hear about your research that's taken place in the past. The fact that Loves Park dillied out, numerous, and the free enterprise system found its level.
that's exactly what they found.
And I can kind of see that that's, maybe we're finding our level. Maybe 16 wasn't enough. And now that we have 40, if they're making it, 40 may be our economic level for that. And as far as that number to keep going, I think we'd probably find the same thing that Loves Park did, that if we had an influx up to 50, that number 50 may only last for a year.
Right. But in the meantime, you would get the
down
10 grand from each person
Yeah,
who wanted to give it a shot, if they wanted to give it a shot.
like, we all know, back at the time when there was 16, one threatened that they wouldn't come to town if they didn't get a license. They came to town and they're closed. That was the end result of that. The one thing I would like to take a look at, if we could, and I would recommend tabling it or whatever we need to do, but one of the things that W and I had in conversations, there was actually maybe some questions that ought to be talked about as far as fees, or as the 50% fee, or how something is taxed, just to go through it again. I thought maybe Steve Cox might be here tonight, because I know that he's been active on it all along, but maybe there's some questions in the mix that, whether I just come to meeting, or if a couple aldermen want to come to meeting or something, which is open, we could have two there. If there's some input or some answers that we could get maybe to a couple minor things, but other than that, I would be willing to table it at this time.
Alderman Clem,
Yes.
I believe, didn't we raise the fees for
Yes.
the gaming machines a year or so ago?
We did, and we've kind of raised everything. But that doesn't mean can't be looked at. And Attorney Cox is the guy that's more fluent with that than I am. He wrote all of that stuff. But, and we, like I said, we had a lot of people coming to the Liquor Commission meetings for a while. Now it's been kind of quiet. So it'd be great if everybody showed up and talked to us again. But certainly you can, I think there's a lot of things that you could look at. Again, what are you trying to do? What's your outcome, right? What is it that are you trying to encourage the downtown? So if you open a business downtown in the TIF districts, your cost could be lower as opposed to if you're, a gas station and you're on the outside of town. What's the ultimate plan? Alderperson Sanders was talking about, well, let's take a look at doing a casino, and your attorney, rightfully so, said, well, that's a very long-term plan. Well, if you look at cities that are very successful, somebody at the beginning had a really good long-term plan that the city implemented and stuck with. The reason Manhattan became Manhattan is because the city planners at the very beginning were given the power and authority to come up with a long-term city plan that was going to make that city what it ultimately became. Whereas where all of the immigrants to the north came in and were allowed to assimilate into the country, they did a giant aquifer system so that they had enough water. They had a system set up to get rid of garbage. And they originally thought it was going to take 50 to 100 years for that entire island to fill up. Well, of course, it did in about 20 years. But it was part of a long-term plan. Nashville was part of a long-term plan. Vegas was part of a long-term plan. Dubuque and Janesville, part of a long-term plan where somebody had a plan of how to grow their city, implemented it, and stuck with it.
Yeah.
They didn't get out of line and try to do something different and then come back. They stuck with the plan. So, a casino in Freeport is a long-term plan, but doesn't mean it can't be implemented.
Well, I was just thinking again, as I do, it gives people options here in Freeport, whether they want to travel out of the city or just stay at home, where they're more comfortable. They don't have to risk their lives on the highways, byways, and spend a lot of money trying to get there and then spend all their money when they get there, when all of that could be absorbed right here in the city that they live in. So I'm just throwing things out there. It's just something for us to just consider, to look at. Maybe we can make a plan out of it. I don't know.
Well, I truly appreciate that everybody let me come back and talk to you. I really, sincerely, really appreciate that. I know that you had an idea, and it was a very good idea. Very good, obviously very good intent as to where you wanted to go and to try to help out the city. I appreciate that given the amount of time and effort that we all put in, that you took the time to let me come talk and we all work together. This is how it's supposed to go, right? Where we all actually have a conversation and learn information, and then from there we can move forward. So I really, really appreciate the opportunity to come here and have a chat with you.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Appreciate your
Very much.
time.
Okay.
I would make a motion to table this indefinitely and work back and forth with the Liquor Commission and Dovey and whoever we need to see if there's some things that need change or maybe don't need change. One of the ones we talked about, and like we talked about, we raise fees on stuff. Well, in the conversation today, we've got one restaurant coming to the city of Freeport, who is currently in the city of Freeport, who has 7 locations, and this is the only one they've applied for a liquor license at. Is that because we're? Video gaming, excuse me. So is that a question of, are we too cheap, or is there something we're offering or not offering? Or, it gives you a thought of, let's take a look at it and see if we're doing everything right, wrong, or whatever. But I think so far it's proved that we've got a good plan going so far.
I
Alderman
second it.
Sanders.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I got you.
I concur with the little notation to add to that. I think that looking at long-term, especially with elderly drivers and kids as well, trying to go to other establishment, and we don't want to discourage people from not having what is necessary or needed right here in the city. I'm a person who always loved to keep in-house revenue so we can maintain at our discretion. You know, I think that Brother Clem is coming forward with these. I like the fact that we're going to continue to entertain the thought, you know, and that we can exploit it and do all of those things that we can do to find out whether we can or we can't. That's all I'm saying.
So we, so the question on the,
I think we would need to have a motion first, because this was just up for discussion here. So you have to have an underlying motion first. So if there was a motion to move this forward to the next city council meeting, let's say, and that got a second, and then Alderman Clem, then we have a main motion at that point, and then if you wanted to make a motion to table this indefinitely, then you could do that.
I would make a motion to move it forward to the next council meeting.
Second.
So now that there's a main motion on the floor, then Alderman Clem, if you wanted to make a motion to table it indefinitely.
Okay, and then I would make a motion to table it indefinitely and work with the Liquor Commission, Mayor, and Attorney Cox to look at different items.
Very good.
Second, sorry.
so we have two motions on the floor. And we'll start with the first one, which is to move this,
You
go back.
work backwards, so
Okay.
you start with the motion.
So we will work backwards, I guess. On item number 8, to table this motion indefinitely. The motion made by Alderman Clem and seconded by Alderman Sellers. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries 7-0.
And then because that passed, then you don't need to deal with the underlying.
Perfect. So we'll move on to item number 9, which is continued discussion regarding ordinance amending Chapter 482, off-street parking lots. There is a memo online, and this is presented by Manager Boyer. Manager Boyer, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In 2021, people who rented residential units downtown wanted to park as closely as possible to the apartment they were renting. At that time, the codified ordinances reviewed and the focus was redirected to creating a downtown street parking map. The issue regarding overnight parking by downtown residents in city-owned lots was not resolved at that time. Earlier this year, staff met to review applicable ordinances, procedures, and need for a placard and a fee structure. The current codified ordinances authorizes 3 parking lots where overnight parking is allowed, provided the user has purchased a parking permit and parks in the designated area. However, over time, placard parking has not been enforced, and there are currently no parking placards issued. Most of the downtown street parking is restricted to 3 hours or less. Staff would like to amend various sections of the codified ordinances to allow downtown residents to purchase 24-hour parking permits in 8 of the 9 city-owned lots. Overnight parking will not be allowed in Lot 12, which is currently leased by the Newell Company. The proposed ordinance revision will align practice with the city's codified ordinance. If vehicles need to be moved for reasons such as abandonment, relocating vehicles for snow removal, or any type of emergency, the owners of the vehicles will be on record and can be contacted. The nominal annual fee of $25 is affordable, yet allows a tracking method for downtown residents who regularly utilize the city parking lot for 24 hours or more. So staff is also asking for an ordinance to move forward with this, raising the annual parking fee from $15 to $25. So staff's asking to move this forward to the next council meeting for first reading.
Madam Mayor.
Yeah, I was just wondering, have you thought about, is there a limit as far as how long they can be parked? It's obviously 24-hour parking, but what if somebody left their car there for several weeks? Is there a time limit as far as how long it can not be moved from that particular spot?
I would expect they'd have to come out and move their car to a different spot every 24 hours. Yeah.
Alderman Sellers.
Thank you. Just wondering, with what Mayor Miller was saying, with that, is there any way that they maybe can get a sticker or something? Or or is that what they get?
That's the idea. We would present them with a parking placard that would basically authorize them to park in that lot during oddball hours. It's just that they would have to move their vehicle every 24 hours.
Don't you think that's really a lot? Excuse me, I got a cough and I've got a piece of candy, I'm sorry. But say if they were on vacation, or, you know, if I'm living there in my apartment, who's gonna keep moving my car every 24 hours? But I think if they had like a sticker or some kind of thing that you know that they can park there, because I just think that's a lot to have somebody pay for something. I live here, but I'm on vacation, I gotta get somebody to keep moving my car every 24 hours. Is that something we can change? 'Cause
Yeah, we can definitely have a look at that. My only comment on that would be, part of the reason you need them to move every 24 hours is so that we know which vehicles are functional and not functional, and that type of thing. And we need to know that, you know, we can contact them and let them know. But I'm sure there's some flexibility there we can accommodate.
I, if that, I'm sorry, say that again?
you gotta
Alderman Sanders.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I thought it would be also some kind of a notification that someone is going to be using a particular spot to get permission for extended reasonings, that we know that they're on vacation or they're going to be parking their vehicle there longer than just 24 hours. I think it should be something that all citizens have an opportunity to park at certain locations if they choose to want to do so. I don't think we should be giving reservations to a parking spot without giving the city some kind of notification to do so. And I think we should put that in practice all over the city. Myself, if you're gonna leave a junk car or no running car, like you were saying, even on the streets of your residential home, you need an extended time to get it repaired, whatever the case is that you're going to be out for vacation. I think the city should be kind of notified, so they're not, because if our street sweeper needs to get in there, you know, workers needs to get in there, fire departments needs to get in there, and they can't get in there to move that vehicle, then it creates a problem for everyone. So I just thought maybe a notification from citizens who wanted extended time to park at a certain location would be efficient enough. That's what I think.
Alderman Clem.
A couple things going back to when this was originally brought forward, long ago and far away. Parts of the problem came up in the wintertime of plowing snow and everything, where the people were on the streets, so on and so forth. Another item that enters into this should, I can name you one right now that I haven't talked to our parking guy about, but sits out in front of a business all day long and blocks other businesses from getting cars. Getting cars in there for business reasons, you know. They happen to live there, okay, but it might cure some of that where they'd have a place to park and not be bothered for how long also.
Any other comments, thoughts?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The other thing I think as you move forward and you look at the thing, I think one of the things is, and I look at Chief Parker here and Chief Schenberger here, the last thing you want to do is make it the biggest pain. You don't want to make it the biggest pain in the rear for the police officers to try and enforce. So I mean, there's a lot of input there between those guys to what'll work. It all sounds logical, you know. I don't have a problem with it, but.
Alderman Sellers.
I guess I thought this was we had started out with downtown parking. Oh, okay. That's what I was on my mind. Okay.
Municipal parking lot, so we own several municipal.
Right, right, yeah, that's what I thought, and then when I started hearing all, streets, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is just for downtown parking, okay.
Downtown parking lots that the
Yes,
city
yes,
owns,
yes.
yes.
Yeah, that's what I meant,
You know,
people that live down here.
I think we're getting there, as far as this goes. The biggest concern, and it was brought up by Alderman Clem, was, what do we do if they're on vacation? What do we do, they're out for a period of time or they're in the hospital? I mean, there's instances where it makes sense for them to not be able to move their car multiple times a week. So, we just got to make sure that we're cognizant of those types of issues that as they pop up, because, for me, if I were renting an apartment downtown, I would be like, look, I've got to have somewhere to park. I don't have a parking lot. I don't have a garage. So I need a spot to put my vehicle. And if something were to happen, a lot of apartment livers in a lot of places, you're looking, especially in downtown areas, are younger. So there may only be one person living there, type of thing. So, we've just got to be, accepting of some things, maybe sitting there a week or so, but, anything that sits longer than a week, I think it makes sense to then address. Alderman Stacy.
Where is parking lot 12?
It's right next to the old Newell building. Newell, Rubbermaid.
Right by the old
Yeah.
Journal Standard building.
Yeah. So, yeah, parking lot 12 is sort of toward the middle of the screen.
It'd be bordered by Stevenson, State, Exchange, and Adams.
Any other comments, thoughts?
Need a motion to move it forward?
We do.
So move.
We've got a motion and a seconded. Sellers and Clem.
Just to clarify, so this is is the motion to move this for first reading, but with with staff to work on some additional language about how long a vehicle can stay parked without moving, right?
Correct.
Renters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, whoever's buying up,
Okay.
renting one of these spots.
Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
Does that also address the street rental properties as well?
It is just in the downtown area.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
But it should be general. That should be something that if renters are renting property even downtown in the downtown area on the side streets, that should be looked at as well. That should be looked at as well, because they're still doing the same thing as a municipal parking lot. And not only that, especially in a public business, and instead of police putting up signs everywhere saying that these parkings are only for the police department and things like that, but other residents that wants to be able to utilize the parking spaces near their homes. You telling me we're gonna just ignore that, even when it's all about, we talking about renters' property and stuff like that? We should be able to generalize that for all rental property. You can't have your guests, your host, coming and visiting you for over 24 hours, taking up all kinds of parking spaces in neighborhoods and things of this nature, congesting the whole city thing. So we're just picking a spot that we want to target and then let everything else just happen without anything, no notification or nothing at all,
City Manager Boyer.
Alderman Sanders, we can definitely have a look at that. This particular ordinance is pertaining to the downtown municipal-owned
yeah, I
parking
get
lots.
that.
So we can definitely look at that those additional items you mentioned, but maybe in a future ordinance.
Right, okay.
Any other comments before we? Awesome.
We need a vote.
Roll call or
All in favor is fine.
Okay. Okay, so on item number 9, amending Chapter 42 off-street parking lots, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Vote carries 6-0. Number 10, continued discussion regarding Patrick Sellers' crime reduction plan presented by Alderperson Sellers and Stacy. Ladies?
Just wanted to know, has anyone made any contacts? Have we gotten anywhere? And I think we keep calling it Patrick Sellers Crime Bill. I mean, I know he wrote it up, but I think it's just something for all of us to just look at some things. And I know that there's certain things in there, and we talked about tonight the budget on lights. I mean, is there a possibility that, you know, maybe one of the steps could be looking into the lights and getting more solar lights? Because there was another shooting Friday, you know, and this was daylight, you know, 7:30. You know, it's getting to be really scary and ridiculous. But, you know, anywhere that we can start to help people just kind of see that we're trying to do something, you know, a little more.
Manager.
Thank you, Chairman. Alderman Sellers, on August 18th, I had a meeting with Township Supervisor Patrick Sellers. We got together to discuss the crime reduction plan presented before. During the meeting, Mr. Sellers received updates on the general city efforts outlined in the plan, the ones that we are working on in there. That includes information about infrastructure repairs, updates, and initiatives aimed at fostering a dialogue with community members. Supervisor Sellers specifically emphasized the importance of trimming overgrown trees around streetlights, as you alluded to somewhat, as one of these efforts, and it was agreed that the tree canopy trimming around streetlights would commence following the conclusion of paving season, which is expected sometime in early November. I worked with and listened to Mr. Sellers as he discussed his intentions regarding the crime reduction plan, highlighting the urgency of taking action, expressing his willingness to assist the city in implementing crime reduction efforts. The next meeting is scheduled for tomorrow, September 12th, and it will involve Chief Schemberger and myself and Supervisor Sellers. The primary focus is this upcoming meeting will center around items related to law enforcement process and procedure, highlighting commitment to addressing the enhancing the city's approach to reducing crime. So there is an ongoing conversation, and I think we're making progress. So there's a lot there in the plan, and we are looking at every one of those items and seeing what we can do to fit them in to our existing budget, and if there's need for changes in the future, well, I'll be approaching council on those things.
Alderperson Stacy.
I have a question. Could that meeting be opened for me to attend?
I'm sure we could schedule a meeting for you to attend. This particular one was not, we weren't thinking about any other guests, and I'd have to give that some thought. But it is tomorrow, and I think that's rather short notice. I'd be open to having you attend a future meeting. This particular one, I think we need to keep scheduled as it currently stands.
Do you have Alderperson Sellers?
I guess I'm just glad to know that there is conversation going on, and we are trying to at least take a step to working together in the community to, you know, help out on this crime. I know it's a lot, but we got to start somewhere, and I do think that it would be nice if Alderman Stacy, if, you know, on a date, let her know what the schedule is so she could be a part of it, you know, if that's what she would like to do. But I'm happy. I'm happy that we're talking about it and we're trying to do something. So that's where I'm at.
Alderperson Stacy.
Okay, you said that on August 18th, Mr. Sellers and you met. Do you know of any other department head that attempted to set up meetings or time to speak with him pertaining to this matter?
I'm
Manager Boyer.
kind of managing that process, so I thought we'd start with the police chief. And there are some department heads that we'll have to see where their role fits into the whole plan. So, but I'd like to start with Police Chief Schenberger, and then go from there and kind of develop the list of things that resources that need to be brought in, and then bring department heads in as it makes sense from a standpoint of needs.
Alderman Sanders.
The thing that I'm wondering is Mr. Sellers participating in the impact of this meeting with you guys' support and help? Is he's attending these type of meetings where we can at any time talk to him about what has been talked about, or give minutes of the meeting of some form, so we can stay abreast with everything that is being said and done, how we're constructing the strategy for this crime prevention, and so we can see how it's laid out, how it's being laid out, and then we get a good idea either we go on the right course, or do we need to get some real professionals in here to talk about how these kinds of things can happen if we have all the answers to how it's been done in any other cities where they had a margin of these types of crimes, and how they resolve them. We like to be informed on some of this kind of discussion, even though we're not present, but the fact of the matter is we're able to see what the outcomes are going to be about.
Go ahead.
I'm open to that for sure.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Well, awesome. It looks like we need to know what the council's thoughts are on the next steps with this.
Yeah, I gave you a voting bar just in
okay.
case we needed a vote, but I don't know that we
I
do.
don't think we do at this point,
Yep.
do we?
I do have a question.
Yes, Alderperson Stacy.
When, I think it's Mr. McElwain, when he first came in, he spoke about this last month. And they had talked about a committee. So, Mr. Boyer, are you all working toward creating this committee that they were talking about? I mean, is that the outlook, or? Because I recall the police chief asked to be a part of it, the round table. So am I making sense? I mean, I'm asking, is that what you all are doing?
Stand by 1 second, Alderman. So as far as roundtable is concerned, I think that's going to come from the outcome of discussions with Mr. Sellers and Police Chief especially. And I am by no means opposed, but I want to make sure that it is that it has a very clear mission, and I think that's really important. So I'm not opposed to that at all, but I want to make sure it's the right structure.
Awesome. Any other comments, questions? No, I think this is a good thing coming forward. This is where it needed to be from the get-go without involving all of us in the initial stages. I think going to the city manager is the right way to go, and starting small and then building on actionable items is the right way to go. So it's good to see this moving forward. If there are no further questions or comments, we will move to item number 11. Continued discussion regarding Resolution R-2023-65 to approve sidewalk reconstruction on State from Douglas to South Alley, presented by Manager Boyer.
Just picking this up from last meeting, a couple of items. I was approached last year by a local pastor and another gentleman who has been active at Rockford and doing a flat work, concrete work mentorship program with local at-risk youth. That project was fairly successful, and we have been looking for quite some time for an appropriate project. Freeport's a little different than Rockford. Rockford owns their sidewalks. The city of Freeport, the property owners, own them. So we're trying to work that process out, but we did find an opportunity at the Art Plaza on the east end of the Art Plaza between Douglas and the alley adjacent to the Art Plaza. That's a large piece of downtown sidewalk that's badly broken, and it's in an area that's really a nice community feature. We wanted to use that as our opportunity to move forward with a program such as this. So we received an estimate from LT Construction, which is the gentleman who is doing the instruction for $29,500 to perform the sidewalk replacement and install an ADA ramp in the alley. That is a cost share with the Art Plaza of approximately $10,000. And at this time, I would entertain any questions regarding it. However, there were some comments made at the previous council meeting, and one of the ones was, why aren't we working with a local person on this type of work, which I am completely open to. However, no one from the community directly approached me about it, and I'm totally open to that moving forward. I just need those people to approach me. So with that being said, since we have this proposal in front of us, I'd like to move it on to the next council meeting for approval.
Alderperson Stacy.
I just want to add that anybody may feel like they can lay concrete. Shoot, I think I could lay some concrete. However, I don't know the depths and the measurements that's needed. And so instead of just idly speaking, I could do that, I could do this, I could do it for less than 20, please. If you're not licensed, it's not even an option for you. And people could talk till they're blue in the face. As he said, no one in Freeport has ever stepped up, has ever attempted, has ever said anything. Take advantage of what we have. It's supposed to be for the kids. I'm just saying.
Alderperson Sanders.
I hate this microphone because thoughts just be rambling through my mind, and I spoke on this subject to certain people in regards to the reconstruction or putting in a new sidewalk down the street. So I wanted to make mention of it again. I'm gonna reiterate myself in case he's available to hear me again. The emphasis are, did we look in-house to determine whether there's licensing individuals? Are we really exploiting the avenues of communication to the general public? And I don't know for sure, but I'd rather see us making an opportunity, well, I like to see us pressing to put it out in the general public, because there has been licensed concrete layers in our city. We just haven't gotten the information to them. They probably have not heard of the information, but I don't know if concrete installers are signed up with the city, as far as whether they're qualified or has a license or something like that to even lay concrete. So we need to determine whether or not we're not overlooking a licensed concrete operator. So So let us do a little bit of work with that. Give other concrete people who own their businesses and things like that can consult with the city, because we don't know how, because $29,000 is a lot of money. That's a lot of money. So, and with the city knowledge, I put it like that, because I believe some of those workers work for the city of Freeport at some time before my retirement. So I want to know if that's a possible option, that we should look at that. Okay? Go ahead.
Alderperson Stacy.
I just want to say that we did not reach out to LT Construction. They reached out to us. We didn't go out looking for someone to do this project. Like I said, it's about the kids. And this is something that he is fully equipped to do and have done and made a difference in the youth in Rockford. And he's trying to bring opportunity to the Freeport area. Nothing more, nothing less.
Madam Mayor.
Yeah, I think what you have to remember is we're not trying to just replace a chunk of sidewalk, because obviously we could contact any of our cement license holders and get it done cheaper. This is about trying to have something of a little more at-risk focus. And so this would give 6 local individuals some purpose, some knowledge. Hopefully then they can become employed in that. That's the reason that we're paying more for someone to teach them.
Oh, I got you.
Alderperson Sellers. And then Shadle's next.
I just want to say that I have, I will abstain, but I want to know, let you know why. Because number one, I'm on the art board, so of course I think it's a great idea, you know. I in the beginning of the Yield program through the Boys and Girls Club, I was a part of that. So I think it's great that these kids, these young men, want to find something to help them make more money in their life. But my problem with the whole thing was that when I first heard it, it was they want to do a demonstration so we could see if they will work in the city of Freeport. So it went from demonstration to the money, and that's my only thing is the dollars. Because I know, and that's where, and I know you have to pay for the removal, I get that. I'm just saying, even me as being when I was catering, if I wanted to give them a demonstration of what I did on how to cater, I didn't charge you for me if you want my business. You know, that's my only problem. So, but other than that, everything else, I am for it 100%. The kids, the art museum, all of that. Mine is just the dollars. And I know it's what, it'll probably be with the art museum doing the 10 and it's 15. I would like to know, where's this 15,000 and how is it being put out? Because 15,000 to me is
It's a lot of money.
I just want to know how it's going to be paid out if you're going to give me a demonstration so I can come into your community and show young men and women how to do this this job. That's my only thing. So that's why it's too much. I have too much at risk, so that's why I'm going to step back. So I wanted everybody to know why I'm stepping back, and that's my reason.
Manager Boyer.
The majority of the funding is going to come through the sidewalk reimbursement fund, so the unused portion of the funding that didn't get used this year in sidewalk programs, that's where the majority of this funding is coming from.
Alderman Shadle.
Ultimately, working in trades myself, I talk to a lot of kids about, would you want to be an electrician? And they have no idea what it entails, which is precisely why this endeavor is so important to the fact that you're gonna take not only just 4 kids, but 4 underprivileged kids, 5, 6, and give them a chance to hands-on work in construction in something that they would previously have no idea. And quite possibly, we could end up with 2 or 3. One may be working for us on the city yards. 1 or 2 could be working in construction companies in the area because they've been exposed to it. Potentially giving them a path that they never would have known existed.
Right.
The other question I have, if I may, is the number that was put on this, Mr. Stekel. Is this a way outlandish number, or is this close to in the ballpark?
I evaluated this with Mr. Boyer and actually did research on LT, and this is what we would pay a contractor price to do the demo, the removal, the replacement, the aggregate, all in. It would have been the same number had we hired it out. And just a comment I'll make, one of the reasons that we don't have local people doing this is there's risk involved with doing this work and training these people. If it's not done correctly, they'll have to rip it out and do it over. We are requiring them to do it to ProAg standards just like we would any other contractor. So there is risk reward in training. If it's not done adequately, it will have to come out. And we had them change their program language to mirror our city standards, which they're willing to do. You know, I think this is a great thing. And I'll give you, Fisher's Excavating locally just hired 2 of LT's trainees as full-time flat workers for them. So it is making an impact in our community, and we see them out on the streets. So it's a good idea. In our normal process, we evaluated this. We actually brought Aaron in to look at it as well. You know, outside of bidding this project out for a local bid, this is the only way to bring training dollars and resources to our city street funds to make it happen in small increments like this.
Alderman Sanders.
Are these the number that you came up with? You brought the figure 29,000. Is that correct?
I didn't bring it. That's what we negotiated with LT, and that's the price they came back with.
Okay, so that's not a bidding price.
That is not a bid price,
Yeah.
but it would compare to a bid price that we've
Well-
received locally.
Well, I have a problem with that, that you're saying that. The 29,000 suggested bid is not what all contractors, general contractors, come up with the same numbers, the same itemized costs for all of that project that you just spoke of. That does not factor in all of the general contractors, as far as bidding and estimation and things of that nature.
It would figure in all the municipal projects that the city of Freeport does because we evaluate bids that we do for municipalities. So there's a difference between local work that's done by contractors that don't pay themselves prevailing wage, and then there's prevailing wage that municipalities have to respect in order to pay these projects. And so there is a cost evaluation
Yeah.
done, Alderman Sanders, based on projects that we've bid
Yeah,
for the whole year.
prevailing wages and as opposed to non-prevailing wages that you're specifying here.
City can't hire people that are not prevailing wage.
Oh, that's right, it's the union. It's because of the union.
Not the union, it's
not-
prevailing wage rights with taxpayers' dollars.
Okay, I got you
So
now.
that's where it changes the rules for municipality work.
So we are few in selections of going out to get other bids from other local contractors.
We did not go out to bid on this section because we're viewing this as a training grounds for local people to learn how to do this work, and we didn't have any other options from any other contractors that would take this risk
Okay,
and employ these young gentlemen to learn a trade.
so they start out with demonstration, and then they're then it determines whether or not they have the interest and want to do the work. Am I correct?
It will bear the interest whether Freeport's interested in pursuing this further in the future based on what Rockford just did
Oh,
on a much larger scale. The difference between Freeport and Rockford is the ownership of the sidewalk. So Freeport doesn't actually, the municipality itself doesn't own a lot of sidewalks. So it's hard to find areas that fit into these flat work projects.
interesting. That's another scheme of project planning that we had not talked about. And I think it would be, because I'm trying to get down to the itemized deductions and things of this nature to lower the price. But you're saying is their bid and is their term and their term only, the ones who's accepting this $29,000 fund for the project, am I correct?
Correct, no subcontractors.
Okay, no subcontract. But the children, the kids that are involved in this will become employees of this contractor?
Correct.
Okay. And tax dollars are coming out of dollars are coming out of the contractor's dollars, the general contractor? They're the ones that's gonna pay them, and then we need to know the scale of how much they're getting paid, because we gotta make sure that the cost that we're being charged at $29,000, what part of that $29,000 that the children get out of that? How you using the scale, the wages or whatever? How are you breaking that down? We have no understanding of that process yet, but we like to know if we can see what children are going to be making over whatever time you guys are going to submit this project, put it into action. We like to know that. We want to see if we're cutting corners somewhere, or they're cutting corners somewhere.
So
That's not
I
going to
can clear
give
that
them-
up.
Yeah,
With
okay.
all projects that are done by the city of Freeport, we require certified payrolls from that are reported to the state with every project. We do not pay the contractor until they submit those with final lien waivers and
Very
chains
good.
of insurance. It's all required. It's standard
Very
SOP.
good. Very good. I like that notion. I like that. I like the way you put that, because it does give us a little bit of element of clarity on what is being broken down. We're not doing line items by line items. We're not doing that. At least, I don't know if we inquire that or request that. So whatever that we're missing in the finance area to see how things are done and how you got it all charted, how it's all charted up, we need to take a look at that. The city of Freeport residents need to see how we're conforming to the contracts that we're working with these other contractors. So we need to know that in order for us to move forward, because these little minute details becomes big dollars, you know, changes or whatever, strategy changes or whatever. It comes down to the minute dollar to explain to us how these dollars are being used and whether they're being used appropriately. And so we need to get into that groove. And I understand that's not where you want to be, but this is important to us to have complete clarity of where the taxpayers' dollars are going.
And Alderman Parker.
I personally think this is a great opportunity to give our youth an opportunity to learn a career. So I'm going to make a motion to move this on to the next meeting.
I believe we already did that at the last council meeting, did we not?
So it was on the council agenda to begin with, but it was referred back to committee there, so I don't think it hurts to have it motion to be put back on
Okay.
committee, or back on council.
So I have a motion by Alderman Parker and a second by Alderperson Stacy. We'll go to a voice vote or a
I have one more thing real quick.
Yes.
I just wanted to do
Alderperson
a
Sanders.
clarification really quick on the young men and women that are in this program, they're not at risk. They're just, they don't know, what they want to do in life, yet. So they're not at risk. So, but I just want to know, just wanted that cleared up, that some of these young men and women are good kids, come from good homes. They just don't know what goals they want to do in life, and this program is helping them get that going. If Pastor Bush would like to, because he's one of the mentors, like I said, I go for the program. I just have too much at stake on my mind, so that's why.
Yes, sir. Come up to the mic and state your full name, please, sir. Even though we all know who you are.
My name is Robert Bush. I am one of the instructors with the Boys and Girls Yield program. We just graduated the class this past Saturday for pre-construction apprenticeship. And we used the NCER curriculum, teaching the kids. They went through class for 10 weeks of pre-construction training, and they gained a certificate so that they get into the trades of their choice. And again, like Alderman Sellers said, they're not at risk. A lot of them are very bright kids. They just need to be directed and instructed. We have one that went on to get gainful employment with in Freeport Industrial Roofing. I mean, he got right out and making $26 an hour right off the bat. In 4 years, he'd be up to $50 an hour. This is the type of opportunity these youth need. And we're just thankful that even what the city is offering these youth to get in with LT Construction, basically is what they did over in Rockford, and they're bringing it here in Freeport for our youth to take advantage of this. Now, when they said demonstration, that was kind of dumbing it down, because it's more than a demonstration. They're going to be in the classroom being taught. For the first day or two, they're going to be in classroom learning, being instructed with curriculum in front of them how to lay concrete and what concrete is about. They're not just going to get out there and start, just pouring concrete and putting down stakes. They're going to be taught and instructed. So this is a worthwhile investment for our community to put into our youth. I'm just excited about it, and I'm thankful for Mr. Boyer for the time he has put in to meet with the individuals to get this going. Everyone that's involved, I'm just thankful that we look toward our youth, especially our program that we're doing, because it's a lot, when you're trying to teach these youth, and when you know that you know, and they think they know. But when you see the fruit of it, and then when you see people that back you like the city is doing with this sidewalk project, is worth the investment. So again, I encourage each one of you to be excited and be behind it and be encouraged about what's happening here.
And
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll throw out there, so he threw out a $50 an hour salary. That's $104,000 a year. Think about the impact that has on our community of those kids growing up and giving back to our community and having a great career ahead of them. So that's an awesome thing. So
And
we'll
it will impact our crime and gun violence.
100%.
Yeah, it gives the thought to any child or growing up to want to get into a job that has meaning to it, and we must promote that. We must look in our own hearts, finding out what it is that we can do, because no child should be left behind in getting a trade of some sort, earning a decent living, and trying to get ahead. So I agree with this program 100%. Wherever we can implement strategy plans and whatever we can do to incorporate ourselves with the children to show that the board is behind it. They're all for it. And we'll continue with the open discussion, for the next meeting, if it is one.
So with that said, we have a motion on the floor. We'll take a roll call or a voice vote at this time. So all of those in favor of Resolution R 2023-65 for the approved sidewalk reconstruction, say aye.
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 Nay.
All of those opposed, thank you.
We need to ask for an abstention.
Yeah, I can,
Abstain.
okay, we'll have an abstention. So it's 6-0-1.
Thank you.
And so we now move on to item number 12, the continued discussion regarding ordinance approving 1% increase in the home rule sales tax presented by Manager Boyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just continuing the conversation about the revenue for a sustainable road program in the city of Freeport. A couple of highlights. We have approximately 139 miles of roads in the city. Quite a large portion of those are below the minimum pavement rating. We need a sustainable source of revenue to continue to maintain and improve our roads and repave our roads. On the city side, for the last 3 years, we've taken the time, purchased the equipment, trained the staff, and they are currently making substantial contributions, but it's not enough. As I mentioned, we have quite a few miles of roads that all need reconstruction. In addition to that, we have a systematic need for new water main and lining of sewers that goes hand in hand with the road program, so that as we continue to identify areas for reconstruction, we're not paving over areas that need repair. We're taking the maintenance and everything seriously and knocking that out before we do the repaving. So one of the ways to fund this particular measure is through a 1% sales tax, which is being proposed here after looking at several different kinds of funding. I believe this and property taxes are the two main options in terms of volume of dollars, and this one is preferable to property taxes due to the fact that it's somewhat elective and it does bring in revenue from outside the city limits of Freeport. Everyone who shops in Freeport at Walmart and at Farm and Fleet and Menards and any other establishment will be contributing to our roads because they use them to get here. So it is equitable from the standpoint of it is bringing in dollars from outside the community. So with that being said, the money would be used for paving materials, manpower, curb, gutter, ADA ramps, contract paving work. Also, it would go to certain wages for our construction crew in our street department, and it would also provide us the ability to do large projects of a significant nature by allowing us some flexibility on being able to cover any future large contracted roads with a multi-year plan. So overall, I think I pretty much hit all the points. We've been discussing this for several meetings, and staff's recommendation is to move this to the second committee or the second council meeting for approval.
So we'll open up the floor to any questions, comments, thoughts. Alderperson Sellers.
Yes. First of all, I guess my big thing is so many people want to see an outline. They want to see a timeline. They want to see, because I guess your word isn't your bond on so many other tax issues or other issues that we have proposed to get money from the citizens. So they would like to see an outline. Can you talk about the wages? How much are we planning on? How many would be a full crew? I mean, people want to see more than we're just reading these paragraphs where you're just saying it'll go to gutters, ADA. They want to see numbers. They want to see timelines. They want to see certain different things. And I agree, because it's going to be my 1% also. So I think that's the biggest thing. People, the trust is not, they do not believe that you're going to use this money properly. And with me, also, it's been a toss and turn, last few meetings on, what to do. I know we gotta do something, and with me, I'm tired of coming to meetings, going back and forth on, hey, I got other stuff to do. But I know we have to do something. And the only way that I am willing to say yes is that we can show the people a timeline, writing it down, so people can see more than just conversation. And that there is a liaison from each ward that can sit down with the group and help them come up with what streets could be the top streets in their neighborhoods, because we don't know all that. I just see that we need to put the community in with this 1%, where they're seeing their streets are gonna be done, going to be taken care of, because our foundation is getting weaker and weaker, and our trust is getting weaker and weaker. And we can't go on with that. So that's the only way, is that I would like to see numbers, I would like to see timelines, I would like to see something than just reading what we say we're gonna do. People wanna see what we're gonna do and how it's gonna be laid out.
Manager Boyer.
I'd just like to respond and say, one of the biggest challenges out here is, and we've seen with Center Street, it is not just a mill and overlay. It is not just curb, gutter, and ADA ramps. We start the program and we identify certain streets, and then we are taught a lesson, which is this street has 5 sewer point repairs and needs $100,000 worth of sewer lining. This is just an allegory to kind of identify the reason why a plan would be nothing more than a sketch capable of being changed, because at this time, the time does not exist to study every aspect of every piece of infrastructure under every road and then come up with a plan. We can come up with a sketch, but I can't commit to a rock solid plan where this is all going to go to. It's also going to depend on prices of hot mix. We don't know what what's going to happen with those. We do not know what's going to happen with various other costs. So, like for instance, water main went, tripled in the last 2 years. If I tell you tomorrow we're going to do this street and water main triples, guess what? That's going to impact that plan. So it's very difficult, and on top of that, not knowing what we're talking about in terms of revenue. Now, I can come up with a sketch and present it next council meeting if that helps, but it will be nothing more than a sketch, because it's impossible to know all the variables that will be involved as we get into each project.
Alderman Parker.
One thing, if I remember right, you said we need to have this done by October 1st so we can start getting money in May for next construction season. So I think we're really running into a bind here, and so I think we need to move this on. Thank you.
Alderman Sanders.
Yeah, I first of all, I'm just wondering, had we exhausted our alternatives? I know we had meetings and we could not conclude no alternatives to the meeting, because I don't know how far down the road that we went to obtain these kinds of objections. But here's what I heard Brother Boyer say, something like, he's going to draw up a sketch, but also in the same sentence he used the term allegory. And we know what the term allegory means. It means it's fairy tale. It means it's fiction. It means that it's not going to happen. That's what that word is, a very powerful word. But when you use that in a sentence and then you cap it off with as if though it's a done deal at that stage, we have to accept it, that is not good for me. I mean, that means the exploitation of seeking out other options to accommodate this road construction leads me to believe. I wonder if the board believes it. Do we conclude with that? Do we accept that? But my thing is, have we did enough exploratory surgery to determine where fundings can come from? The people wants to know, have we exhausted all of our options? That's what the people wants to know. And until we say absolutely that we have explored all options, people are going to be timid about this 1% thing. They're going to be like, they're not saying what we want them to say. And so we have, if we don't have options or taking things into consideration to look into these matters, let's not put out a metaphor as if though we have. And then these are the things that the citizens of Freeport have to accept. We shouldn't have allow our councils and members, the people that runs the city, just give us soap and water, wash it on down the drain, because it's not going to happen. I come that way because I want to see the sincerity of our council board, whether or not we put in all our heart and efforts into coming up with a resolution. And if that's not what we're doing, I don't want us to be sitting here pretending, going through this metaphor as if though we're trying to get things done, because here's the thing. If this board is not collaborating on these top issues and always got to come to the council to try to hash out our problems, we're in the wrong business. This is not where this is supposed to be taking place. We need to come up with solutions and talk about solutions before we get out here in the public realm talking about something that is allegory. And when you use those terms, people know what that is. Nobody's a dummy, and they know what that's all about. And so the thing is, we have to come differently. That's the reason why our residents are raving mad at us, because we're not doing the proper things. And so I think we should need a revision when we bring up these types of hard questions and hard topics that we have to mitigate for 2, 3, 4 weeks before we get an approval. We just dancing in circles. So we need to stop that so we can really get to the, how they say it, the nitty gritty, get down to the real problems and finding out what we're doing and what we're not doing. That's the whole problem with the people of the city of Freeport. They don't know what we're doing. And frankly, I personally having a problem with the issues that we're bringing up sometimes. I'm long-winded, so I'm going to pass the baton on to somebody else.
Alderman Shadle.
Streets have been the one thing that's been the forefront in my mind since I got elected 2+ years ago. And like I said last week, I've spent many conversations. And there's been numerous times of trying to come up with where can we get the money? Where can we get the money? I'm just looking at what we covered on the budget tonight, and if we eliminated the city council, the commissions, finance department, forestry department, traffic engineering, street lights, and animal control, we could come up with $1 million.
Touche.
And we're still 2/3 short of what this tax is gonna bring us. And this tax is only gonna get what we need. This isn't something that's bringing $2.5 million extra every year. This is what we need to get this done in any kind of timely fashion. The wages for our guys in the street department, they need to be addressed. We can't keep help because we're not paying enough. The streets are a shambles. There's nobody in this town that's going to argue that fact. And we have been up and down trying to figure out how we could come up with this money. This is the answer. If we want to fix these streets, this is what we have to do. Thank you.
And I'll throw this out. You know, we're talking about, you know, what roads we could do and where this money could go. My only concern with the overall part of this is applying dollars of this money to anything as far as money going toward personnel. Because I think we're talking about funding that separately, and I think we've got to keep the two as separate as possible. If we're pulling somebody from one department to another, that makes sense. But we need to limit that as much as possible. But, and, you know, Kevin, thanks for putting this together. These upcoming street projects are always in this. Kevin's doing a great job with this. City crew conducted work, Empire Street from Float to Galena, Chicago to Empire, Chicago Ave from Galena to Empire, Empire to South, on and on and on and on. You could literally drop anybody off anywhere in the city and you could throw a rock and you'd hit a road that would need to be fixed. So I trust staff to come up with a list. You know, some of our worst streets, like Adams, is being addressed, and that allows us to then fix the roads off of Adams, you know, off of Chicago, the other places. So, you know, that part of it is important. And I think for me, my mind changed in the last 2 weeks. I was literally against this from day one. And the reason my mind changed is because I'm hearing from other people saying, as long as this is going to roads, sidewalks, curb gutter, water, sewer, whatever it may be, infrastructure period, they supported it. But we have to stick to that. We have to hold everybody accountable to this because, you know, they're not going to reelect any of us. You know, and I didn't come here to get reelected. I came here to try and help fix the city because there's a lot of things that need to be fixed. And I think this takes a step forward. Alderperson Stacy.
How do we fix this? It's not my question. How many opportunities have we had? And we did not do right by funding. And one can say it's neither here nor there because the fact still remains that our streets are a wreck. There's grants and opportunities out there for things, if I am not mistaken, like curb gutters and ADA ramps, which cost $7,000, am I correct, per ramp? That's a lot in itself. I'm sorry, am I correct with that?
Actually, it could cost more than that. That's a low price, yes.
So, I don't want to have another big CI pool and a lot of money dumped into it, going Lord knows where. We asked from the beginning, is there a fund that this can be put in for streets only? I don't want to deal with wells. I don't want to deal with water mains. There's other benefits out there for those things. We need this money for our streets. Not robbing Peter to pay Paul. Not borrowing from this to do that. Oh, we could put it back in. No. Time is not only of the essence, as Alderman Parker said. But I see timing as everything. I know you want to get it passed. I know you want to be able to move forward by May. Timing is everything. If not now, when? I don't know. All I know for sure is that there has been other opportunities as late as 2016, 2017, and we failed. And so there is a trust issue because that was a 150 mil. This is just 3.5 a year. So you're gonna have to give us something that allows us to rest assured. And I don't know that you can do that. I don't know that even asking you to do that is possible.
Can I ask you to back up and explain a little bit further? What is the 150 million at 2016? I'm confused.
Clem, you want to talk about that, Alderman Clem?
Sure. What I believe that Alderman Stacy's talking about is back when we voted on the CIP funding. The intent of that funding was over a period of, I believe, 10-year period of time to put $150 million into infrastructure work. And that has been and is being done, which Michelle explained last time where that money comes from, where it goes to, and the amount of money that's in the funding now. I thought for a period of time that there were issues with that, but in talking to everybody and understanding the way it's worked and that it has to, that funding has to pay for everything up front before we get paid from the state and all that kind of stuff, I believe that there are no, so to speak, missing funds. But at that time, in the, go ahead.
Go ahead.
At that time, the intent on that, and then it came back when it was revoted on where $4 of that, like Darren brought up, could be used for roads because you had money for infrastructure but didn't have money for roads. With the CIP funding that we have, okay, and if we have the road funding moving forward, we should be able to handle X number of $1 million of roads per year. And that would be the goal because you can only tear up X number of $1 million of road because pretty soon you can't go anyplace. You don't have the manpower, you don't have the people to do them, you don't have the places to go, you can't reroute the traffic. So all of those things have to enter into this construction thing. I'll tell you, my only concern in this is, and everybody has basically said a version of it or another, I haven't seen anything in writing, okay, that tells me, now tonight when Rob, as a city manager, read that form, when he talked about what it was, that's the most I've seen it in one place. I believe that, in my mind, that at this point or someplace, and please believe me, if the next meeting isn't the end of the world, we can have a special meeting, we can have 2 more meetings, we can have whatever we need until we get to where everybody's comfortable with it. But I am or was under the impression somewhat that Attorney Zito was going to draw up something, okay, that we were going to have where we could look at. You know, that's to me what everybody's saying here is everybody is not convinced that it's all going to roads. And I told a person today who is a finance person that until everybody here is satisfied that it's going to roads, period, the votes aren't gonna be there to do it, because the comfort level for that, I believe at the moment isn't here, you know. But there's plenty of time to do that. I don't think, Rockford runs their setup, which is similar to ours, and McChesney Park does, I believe. Is it McChesney or Loves Park that has the, okay. They base theirs off of a 5-year plan that's been developed for what to do. I think we still all have to take a look at, no matter how we do this, you know, and what project we do and whose wards it's in or whatever, keep in mind one of the first roads that you need to do is, it's been discussed openly here, is Walnut Street, and that's $7.5 million, and you aren't gonna have the money for that for 2 years. So everybody has to work on a way that we can move this forward, and everybody's comfortable with it. But, you know, to me, when we see that on a paper that says this is what we're gonna do, I'll feel a lot more comfortable.
Can I still come back to that question? Sure. Was there like a misunderstanding, Director Richter, that somehow there's an understanding of 150 million somewhere?
Excuse me, okay, no, what I said, over a period of time, there was gonna be $150 million in that fund for infrastructure use, but that fund has been used ever since it's been put into force for infrastructure already. You know, so that, if you stop and take a look at it, if there's $13 million in there now, the magic question would be to go back to Michelle and say, Michelle, how many dollars have we spent out of this fund? You know, there's been millions of dollars spent out of that fund.
Absolutely.
For infrastructure, a minor share, the $4, but most of it, for roads. The other large part of that was used for infrastructure. You know, which infrastructure is water, sewer, yada, yada, under the streets.
Roads, we need
Can I?
I would like to also say that those funds are used for debt service as well on water, sewer, and storm projects as well. So once these IEPA loans go into repayment, that's the funds that are used to pay for those loans.
So would this ordinance, Director Richter, would this give you the authority to set up a new fund that is specifically for how it maps it out with paving and?
Definitely. So we already have a fund, a roads fund, 318, that's on the list that we gave you at the budget
Today?
time.
Was that today?
We haven't gone over the budget for that fund yet. It was just on that list of ones that we have to get working on, that whole list for the budget season. But we already have a roads fund, and that's where our 2 bond issuances went, and that's where we paid the bills when we did all the projects for those 2 road bonds. And the reason.
So it is safeguarded for road use
That's in a
only.
fund. That fund can only be used for roads.
How much money is in that fund?
We have projects earmarked through this year, so we'll be out of money by the end of the year. We got a lot of projects in the hopper through the rest of the year.
Is road
Sanders.
construction is part of that CIP? I know you just said it. I think you just said that.
Roads, the CIP that has been talked about was
Yeah.
for water, sewer, and storm. And there's a very small amount on your water bill that is deposited into this roads fund. And the intent of that money was to pay the debt service on to help pay the debt service, that doesn't pay all of it, on the 2 bond issuances that we have done.
But let me make sure that I understand you right. There is a road fund category just for road funding. has any of that money been appropriated or allocated somewhere else during the process of this duration?
No, this is a road fund. All of the funds are set up specifically. The city has 31 different funds that we maintain. They all have specific uses.
Did you,
And this road fund is for road projects.
okay, have you, that was brought to the council while we're talking about this 1%? The road fund?
We haven't brought the budget to this council.
Yeah, that's what we're looking for, the budget for it, and what do we have in there allocated for the road funding? We don't know what's in there. I hear different numbers. I hear different numbers coming from various directions, but I don't hear the line items for that budget for roads. I don't hear that. And when is it being used? And how often has it been used? What year did you start accumulating these dollars in, for road fundings? And just specifically for roads. We want to know what is it for roads absolutely that those funds are not being misguided other places for budget, for debt payments and things of that nature.
Director Boyer.
Just to make a comment on the road fund. So we had 2 bond issuances. The product of that went into the road fund. Then those funds were budgeted for various road projects throughout the city in the last 3 to 4 years. Okay, Float was one of them. Empire was one of them. Okay, we've purchased materials. We've purchased equipment for roads. Okay, that is where those funds have gone. And what Director Richter is saying is, and I'm just reemphasizing it, after this year, that fund, or what's in there, will be exhausted, and we need to have a future source of funding that we can then put together. We know what we'll be getting, so we can put together a road program for next year and future years. So what we're really saying is, without an additional reoccurring funding source, we're going to be basically where we were back in 2018 or 2017, where there was no budget for roads all by itself. There was water utilities and sewer lining, and there's those things. And as they are affected by, you have to cut the road up to fix the water main, then you fix that piece of road, but you're not doing curb to curb work. You're just patching back in. Okay. So what we're getting at here is we need a reliable source of funding that's going to fund the road program at the rate of $3.5 million per year for as long as that sales tax is in place. So, and just an estimate, and if we did 8 miles of roads per year, we would get all the roads done in Freeport in 20 years or thereabout. Okay, but we don't have the money to do 8 miles of roads per year without some type of revenue source that's reoccurring that we can count on year to year. So that the purpose of this request, this 1% sales tax, is to provide that annual funding source that is needed to do as many miles a year as we can, hopefully 8, but as many as we can. I don't know if I mean.
I know we can end up in some unfamiliar territories when it comes to doing road construction, because there are many various situations and issues that come arise. But the thing is, these kinds, well, I had made a request for you to speak to the public generally so they can get to know who their city manager is. They're aware of you, but they really don't know you. And for you to tell us about things that you are expecting to do and projects that you want to get done. Sometimes people like to hear from the horse's mouth themselves, from the people that want to trust you, want to trust the city council. Matter of fact, I will be glad to hear all of us at one point in time speaking on behalf of the residents of this city, letting them know you're in charge And what we're going to do is try to provide whatever the issues are that you're concerned about. That is what the general public wants to know. They want to be able to feel that they have a connection. And right now, they're not having that connection because my phone is getting rung off the hook. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll try to describe what the residents are complaining about and things like that. But I think we might be a little bit out of touch. And we need to get in touch with our citizens here in the city of Freeport, letting them know that you guys can pop up anywhere and talk about something that can help with resolution.
We need to keep this on the roads.
Well, I'm okay, I got you. But the thing is, let me finish with this. Let us be able to pay attention to what the citizens are trying to, maybe somebody might have a clue. Maybe they might have have information that they might want to share with us. And so I like for us to give them an opportunity to have a voice and opinions about certain things that are happening. All right.
Alderperson Stacy.
Okay, I have a question about the bonds. I understand,
How does that relate to the 1% sales tax?
because is this bond money that we're paying out gonna come from this 1%? I mean, we have to pay those bonds, am I
No.
correct?
No, this is separate from those bonds have already been funded, so this is separate from that. So this is gonna go to future roads. City Attorney.
I'm just going to take just a minute or two just to try to see if I can't summarize in a nutshell a little bit this the kind of the whole ball of wax surrounding this. So, and Darren or Rob, if I misspeak about the history, correct me. But I'm going to say that traditionally in past years, all right, back in time, right, the city has never necessarily had a dedicated source of funding to fix roads other than maybe MFT funds. So the amount of yearly MFT funds that we might get, maybe it's $1 million at most, maybe it's $800,000 at most, but that's what we traditionally have had as a reoccurring source of funding to do road projects. Not a lot, okay? So ultimately then the city said, okay, well, that's roads. We also have water, sewer, and storm that we need to have fixed, other types of infrastructure. Well, they created the CIP fund for that. That shows up on your water bill, but that funds the fixing of water, sewer, and storm, right? Ultimately, what they discovered was, well, when we go to fix storm sewer, water mains, sewer mains, sometimes that requires you to tear up the road, okay? To get to the water main, in order to fix it, you gotta tear the road up. Well, there wasn't a source of funding to pay for that unless you took it away from MFT funds. So if you wanted, you still had to use MFT funds then. So instead what they did is they said, well, we have all these water sewer main projects that we have to do, that we created the CIP fund to fund. Let's use a portion of that and allocate it towards the road portion of having to tear up the road. And that's why $4 was taken and allocated from the CIP to fixing the road. In order to do those projects, though, that they had there, they needed an upfront funding source, okay? And that's the two bonds, okay? So they had sewer mains, road, water mains that needed to be fixed. We have a project for that. We have the funds, the CIP, to do that project, but what we didn't account for was how do we pay for the road? So we'd say, you know what? We'll take $4, we'll go take a loan out, 2 bonds, and we'll dedicate those $4 to pay those 2 bonds off over time, okay? So the CIP fund is spoken for, and that's what Director Richter was saying. And so other than just yearly MFT funds, then we still now don't have any reoccurring source of money. City never has, other than MFT, to fix roads. And unfortunately, we're at a position now where the can has been kicked around for so many decades that we have so many roads that are in such bad shape that this administration now is tasked with deciding how are we going to create a reoccurring source of funding for roads other than just that little bit of MFT money every year that we get from the state that we have been using for the last however many decades, just doing a little road here, a little road there, whatever it is. What can we do to create a source of funding to try to get some significant chunks of road done each year? And what staff has come up with is looking at all the opportunities, other ways of create funding or this or that. Sales tax is what staff is saying is the most plausible way to fund significant chunks of road repairs go forward. So, did I speak anywhere?
And I'll throw two other things out. There was a period of time, and I don't remember the years, but they put substandard water mains, water lines in. So if you take and you drive this heavy equipment over those the water lines, you will actually break the line. So we'll have water main breaks all over that road. And it's not a matter of if, it will happen. It's just a matter of when it's gonna happen. So that's a very, that's a very problematic. So you do the road and then you go back and you spend just on road, you don't fix the underlying problems, the lines break. And then you have to tear the road up and do it again. And we can't afford that. Am I right? So.
Yes, you're absolutely right, but in addition to that, we're not just replacing and paving roads. We've developed our own street crews to pave our roads, and every dollar we spend with them, we're getting twice as many miles than if we contracted out. Folks, we're doing everything we can to not only reduce our cost of overhead, do things smart. We're contracting out the big jobs that we just can't handle, but we're taking care of the little jobs that everybody needs done. Your neighborhood street. Our crews can do that all day long now. So I would just ask you that as we move forward with this conversation, I think we have demonstrated what can be done. I think that our crews have done an amazing job and demonstrated what they can do. And what we need now is we need the support to move this thing into a regular program that's not just borrowed bond money and this and that, but a substantial a substantial reoccurring source of revenue that'll at least get us systematically moving this program forward. And I can't do it without it.
So one question, and now I'll come to you. How much money comes in annually on the MFT?
Somewhere between $800,000 and $1 million a year.
So that would be added to the 3.4
Yes.
we're talking about here.
Yes.
So we'd actually get 4.5 million about.
Yes. I think Darren has something.
Sorry, go ahead.
I would just like to give a little outline that we've been working on. It's not final, but you guys have been asking for a blueprint of how we pull this off. And I'm just there's 4 points here and we're trying to make it easy. So with the funding, we would be able to do about $2 million worth of contractor-led projects. So that's projects that will be fully designed, reconstructs that would be done in town annually. So we would bid those projects out and an outside contractor would perform those. That would leave about $1.8 million worth of city contractor or city-led work that we could do in-house with our paving crews, buying materials, doing mill and overlays. We don't have the ability to do the milling, and it's not something that we want to do, so that's something that we would hire out within our own process to be done. And then the resulting money would be probably about $300,000 in annual wage increases for our employees to be able to bring them up to the level they need to do. And then we still have roughly $500,000 to $600,000 worth of MFT left that will be able to flux between the two, contractor-led and city-led, depending on how much staff we have, how much we can get done. Every street, Center Street is a great example of what we're dealing with right now. We just got done grinding it off. It's covered with brick, it's covered with concrete, it has base repairs. We had $100,000 worth of lining that needed to be done to it just to get it done. There's a large storm sewer that collapsed in the center of the street by the school that we needed to repair. That's what we're gonna run into in our old neighborhoods on every street. And it's not something that I or anybody else that works for any engineering company is going to be able to say that this road cost X and we can count on it. So we gotta have a little, I don't wanna call it slush money, but we have to have a little balance money to be able to ebb and flow to make things work in the field as we can. But the full intent is, moving forward, if this is passed, that will be the annual contribution within a couple $100,000 each way. And if there's anything left, then it would roll to the next year. And that's what we do every year. We may have some that does roll forward this year. I don't know what the way the weather's changing, if we're gonna be able to get every street done this year that we've committed to, but we're certainly trying. Anybody that drives around will see, You know, we're grinding Chicago right now. We're undertaking some large paving operations. And to James's point, and I've been transparent with you guys, we need to see if we can't take a few of these dollars and try to figure out a better way to fix the mousetrap. And you know, and I'm going to be very transparent with you guys, what we're very, very afraid of is we don't want to open it up to public debate about what road gets done. Everybody wants their road done in town. We know that. And that's never going to be a good situation for Freeport. We have to do what's best for the community on the roads that are getting traveled the most. We know that a lot of the side and residential streets are in very poor shape, but it's going to take us some time to get there. Let me throw this out. Even if we took the $1 million of MFT average and added to 3.5, that's $45 million in the next 10 years on roads. That isn't, you know, it's going to be very helpful, but it's not even 25% of what we need to get our roads there in 20, 25 years. So you have to have real expectations with what we're trying to do here, but we'll get there. And we're making a difference. One of the things that, you know, really bothers me when we are having these discussions, and it's not insulting, it just bothers me. We have really tried very, very hard over the last 4 to 5 years to really improve road systems in Freeport. You guys can see the proof in the pudding. Anybody that drives around town sees that we're investing in roads. We're putting a lot of dollars, a lot of time, and a lot of effort into it, and we're trying hard. We can't be held responsible for things that were done in the past. We can only do what we've been doing over the last few years and move forward as a team together. And I'm well aware of the need to do streets, and I don't think it's up to public debate what we do, but I think there can be an annual plan that's approved that these are the streets we're going to move forward, and people can agree on that to a level just like we did the last year. These are the streets we're going to work on this year. Here's the finance planning. Here's the costs estimated, and we move forward annually, year to year, in agreement on that. I think that's the best plan, because even if I give you a 10-year plan, there might be a street that just falls apart next year that we didn't anticipate, and we're going to have to move it up on the schedule if it's an important street. And just want to be transparent and honest with everybody. That is the plan. That's always been the plan, and it won't change no matter what's going to happen if we get the funding. That's our crews are limited at about that 1.5 to 1.8 million per year based on the number of people we have and the seasonality of the work. Okay?
You were first.
I would just like to know, what is Plan B if we don't get the 3.5? We're not going to come back and ask for more if we don't get this 3.5 million. I mean, that's the number we're throwing out, but what if it doesn't happen? Then what do we do?
Without?
Frankly, I mean, it's a pretty easy thing. If we don't get the sales tax increase and we don't move this forward.
No, I'm saying, what if you don't get the 3.5 million?
Well, that's where I said we'll have to adjust the program based on the dollars that are coming in, because it will be an ebb and flow. But we also, like I told you, we have the MFT money that we weren't going to fully allocate all of it to make sure that we're meeting some balances every year, right? So 1 year, you can there's actually rules out there, it's hard to explain, but you can overspend MFT 1 year if there's averages about what you'll get. You can, if you've got a project that you want to spend it on and then you pull yourself back the next year to try to balance it out. It's not a good way to work, but there has to be some kind of balance to what we do. Costs will change over 10 years. Priorities are going to change over 10 years, and hopefully even road technology might change over 10 years that there's something better. I know, Walnut is one of the biggest projects similar to Adams that we have coming up, and we have to figure out a way to fund that as a group. We do have some what they call federal STU funds built up, and that street qualifies for that. Not every street does, so that's practically like half of the attack to that street over the next 2 years, and we might have to do it in phases.
City Attorney.
I was just going to piggyback off of what Darren said, and then I wanted to actually address a question that Alderman Clement made. But I think that Alderman Sellers, that to the extent, I think you were saying that if the 3.5 million, that's been a number that's tossed around, what if the sales tax, the extra 1% doesn't actually generate 3.5? What happens? Let's say it only generates 3 million, right? Or 2 million, whatever it is. Well, I think the kind of the simple answer is that, well, if we were hoping to get, you know, all these roads fixed in 25 years or whatever it is, maybe it takes 26 now because we didn't get that, or maybe it just takes 28. We're able to do less roads. That's all it boils down to there. Alderman Clem, you had mentioned that as far as like drafting something like a kind of a working document there. So that is attached to the agenda. There is a draft version of the ordinance that specifies the limitation on use of the 1%. Now, granted, it's worded that the 1% shall only be used for roadway repairs, reconstruction, you know, the sewers that are under those roads, the water that are under those roads, you know, and then it references, you know, manpower and pays for the public works crews and stuff like that. Obviously, that's subject to whatever the council decides, but there is a working draft attached to the packet.
Alderman Clem.
Just to follow up, Darren, while you're here and the city manager and Aaron was on, let's take, for example, and I think one of the questions that is in my mind, okay, and I think maybe some of the others might be thinking it. Okay, we got a road project coming up, anyone, it doesn't make any difference where it's at, okay? And we're doing both resurfacing and infrastructure work on it, okay? Tell me where the funds come from for that. Does the infrastructure work come from the CIP fund or any of that, or does all this come out of the road fund?
Well, City Manager Boyer should answer that, but I believe it's a simple answer.
Actually, I'd like to have the finance director speak to that.
I mean, it does kind of depend on the project. If it's IEPA project, you know, we can put it there. If we're designating this as a road project and then find, like how Darren says, that the sewers collapsed and stuff like that, then I would think it would have to be all rolled, it would have to be rolled together. Because if it's not budgeted in the water and sewer fund, you know, you're gonna have problems there if we run into a giant problem under the roads.
So I think our plan is to fund the water and sewer from water and sewer funds, which is the CIP, and our plans is to use the road for the road funds.
Right.
Sometimes, we won't lie, a little bit, that gets muddy depending on the project. For instance, right now, Bradmar in town, that water and sewer is coming out of the water CIP fund because we have funds built for that project, and the street funds are coming out of the general street funds. So whenever we attack a project, we sit down and we plan where the funding's gonna come with before we bid it, so we know kind of where we're going. And those are budgeted, you know, annually as well, with some good estimates of what it would take. We will run into, like Michelle said, emergency situations that we're gonna get on a street, and if the sewer collapses on us while we're trying to do the road work, it may have to be tapped from them. But the plan is to try to sink every one of these dollars as much as possible into the roadway, curbs and sidewalk. That is the intent of the street fund.
Thank you.
And you have to remember, so there, we have another water and sewer fund that we use annually, and we can complement our street program with sewer lining, because we've been doing about $500,000 worth of sewer lining each year. That can complement our road program if we can get a season in front of it to be able to know, hey, this sewer is good, so we know we're going to Shawnee Street, and we've already cambered the sewer, and we've already got it lined, and we know we're ready to go. So that's something that we plan to do, but we've never had enough money to actually make it cyclical and run in a cycle of, okay, get a year ahead of that. We just never have had the funding or the plan to do that, so it's been a little bit of reactionary of, hey, this sewer over on Clark is falling apart. We need to line it now, right? Because we just spent $40,000 in point repairs on it. So again, we're trying to get away from being reactionary and being, you know, good stewards of the money and try to plan ahead to where, you know, we have better costs nailed down and we know where we're going with the not just a 1-year plan. I'd like to be a couple years ahead because that's the best way to do it. again, I'm scared to give you a 5-year plan because I know it won't be that 5-year plan in 5 years, and somebody's gonna be upset and see that, hey, that my street was on there and now it's not. You know, I think a good tale for this year is how much more the city street department's getting done than we even anticipated. We're adding thousands of feet of street work on this year. We got really good cost. They're committed to trying to get it done. We're actually pushing the limits of what we can. So I think the crews, the staff, in engineering, counting myself, and City Manager Boyer, and when he was the Public Works Director, are really trying to stretch our dollars as far as possible to try to impact all of Freeport.
Alderperson Stacy.
Okay, so I just want to have a total understanding that if this 1% was to go through, that it would not be used for funding projects already on the table.
Correct. 100%.
Okay.
I'll clear that up for you. The projects that we have on the table right now that have been bid, let, and are moving forward, and including the 2 this Thursday, are all appropriated for. They're already in the budgets. They've already been planned, and we know where every dollar of that's coming from. And so this money that we're talking about in this plan is for the 2024 budget cycle that we do not have planned. And again, we'll have to be conservative in 2024 because until we know what the revenue brings in, we can't go spending all of it right away.
So Hancock and lowering the street and all that is already funded.
Those are in design. The design's funded. The constructions of those are not funded.
Okay, so if this 1% was to go through, would those monies be used for those projects?
The Hancock Bridge, we already have budgeted funds for that, so
I'm not
no.
talking about the bridge, I'm talking
Yep.
about the roads.
The roadway and the street construction, the water and sewer, could be used for the road construction piece of the Hancock Viaduct, because that's something that we don't have construction funded for yet.
And see, that's what we don't want. We don't want to add more to our plate. We want to take care of what's,
Understand that, but we have to create funding for that. It has to come from somewhere to lower the utilities and fix the streetway.
okay.
But that, again, that is not a project that we've budgeted the construction of. We've only budgeted the design of.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying, we have got to be more transparent. Because we're thinking it's gonna be for our roads, whether it's Walnut, whether it's Garden, whether it's whatever. But Hancock is our roads, but
Correct.
we're,
But the water and sewer and storm would come out of CIP, so you're only talking about the road portion of that project.
I have to ask a question. So the third ward roads don't matter, the viaduct doesn't matter, those businesses and the people that live out there don't matter? I guess that's my question. I mean, we've got 10 projects on page 3 right here that are funded, being done. The bridge is funded. The roads around there and the viaduct piece are not funded, but we have to do that in order to do the bridge because you can't take the bridge down without having the viaduct fixed. So I don't see what the concern's about. I'm just trying to understand. Oh, so we don't need a vote. Any other comments, questions?
No, my recollection, Madam Clerk, is that there was a motion to move it forward for second reading. Then I believe there was a motion made by Alderman Clem also that was approved to just have an additional discussion at tonight's COW, but it was already actually moved and seconded to move forward for second reading.
I agree.
Okay.
I want to say one thing, since we're still open for discussion. Had we approved the viaduct on Hancock, have we approved the work study appropriate funds that have been allocated for that area of the viaduct? Haven't we had approved that or not? I'm just curious.
City Manager.
We have not approved any construction on the viaduct.
Well, we can,
We basically
We
need
just
to do
put
it-
the, we just
need
put
to
the
first-
cart before the horse.
No, we
That's
have
what
to, we
just
have to,
did.
we have to do the design work.
Right.
Once we get that complete, then we will be able to go out for bids and find out what it's gonna cost.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have an estimate, we have a rough estimate, but we'll be
Okay.
looking at the 2024 budget.
But we don't know where the
I
funds.
don't wanna
come-
like sacrifice the entire conversation on the viaduct.
Mm.
This is a critical piece of infrastructure we have to deal with, and we are. As a matter of fact, we think it's, we have some, various other funding from our MFT accounts and things that would apply to this, okay? So I wanna keep things straight. When we're talking about the road program, we're talking about roads in the 3rd Ward, we're talking about roads in the 5th Ward, we're talking about roads 7th Ward, whatever ward, we're talking about roads. Okay, I don't want anyone getting the wrong idea that if we do this tonight, it's just gonna go into the viaduct. That's not at all the case. We are working on that viaduct whether we have a road program or not. That's gotta be done.
Okay.
Okay, that is gonna be done regardless of what happens on this sales tax. But we need to make sure that all these funds that we're proposing go to actual impacting people's lives, and that is roads. Okay.
Yeah, because it is still up for debate. When you want to mitigate that area on Hancock, it is up for debate still if we have not approved anything for that. And I think the 1% sounds like it's going to try to include that as well. Am I right about it?
I'm gonna say that's negative.
That's negative, very
Yeah,
good.
that's
very
negative.
good. I'm glad you said that.
All I'm saying to you right now, that project's happening whether we get a 1% sales tax or not, so that's a negative.
So we will find the source for that project?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Any other comments?
I have one more comment, James. Yes, sir. Just because we would go forward or not with the 1% sales tax increase will not stop us from chasing other funds for road projects as they come available. Whenever we see opportunities, we go after them. We recognize them to the city, and we try to apply for that money, and we'll continue to do that as a secondary funding source to all of these projects.
And now we're going to move on to item number 13, which is public comments, agenda or non-agenda items limited to 3 minutes per person. And I do not, we've got one, maybe more.
So I have a couple of things. You always know that I usually come in front of you and tell you all the bad things. But today I wanted to say thank you to the city for within 2.5 hours of finding a city tree laying on my property. They were out and had that tree removed and cleaned up off my property. So thank you for that. I also wanted to say to Alderman Clem, who made a point of saying having a conversation and a back and forth with the Liquor Commission. I would also like to see a back and forth conversation with the Landlord Association and the Realtor Association that you can have those with in regards to the crime reduction plan. And Alderwoman Sellers, I want you to know that the Landlord Association has taken steps and has a meeting scheduled with Patrick Sellers as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Next up is executive session. Oh,
Gentlemen.
I'm sorry. Feel free to come up, sir. Oh, no, sorry, I missed your hand.
We work for you.
Mayor Miller and the councilor committee. My name is Joe Threadgill, and just good to set in on tonight. And all of this, from what I'm hearing, you know, the streets is being worked on, and I know streets is bad all over Freeport, but I see there is some progress. That is maybe slow progress, but there is progress, you know. And I be out on these streets every day. Matter of fact, I'm all over Stevenson County. And some of the streets outside of Freeport is better streets outside of Freeport, just Blacktops is better streets than here in Freeport, in the city here, you know. So I know it's going to take time, but if you're working at it, then that is progress. And from what I'm hearing tonight, it sounds like that we need to be on one accord. We need to be, it need to be some understanding and working together in order to get things done. So if one is going one way and the other one is going, we can't get anything done. So it's a matter of working together. And we know that envy is rampant our nation and our society. Violence is rampant, So it's the matter of coming together and working together. And if we can do that, work together in peace and in harmony, we can get things done. And I had another something that I wanted to say also, and it is pertaining, I know it's getting late, it's pertaining our young folks in Freeport here, And I've been around Freeport long enough, I've been out on the Empire there for 30 years. I've been in Freeport for 60 years. and while I know our young people, they are out of control, but if we, and I don't know whether it's the city's responsibility or whether it's just the individual responsibility, but our young folks, if we could do something, even down, and I know we had a skating palace back years ago. I don't know what the reason was that we couldn't keep it here, but if we had a skating palace here for our young peoples to,
Mr. Joe,
that.
your 3 minutes is up, sir.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. That's that last question that I wanted to ask, pertaining to young folks.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Maybe
Thank you
I
for
can
coming
bring that up
tonight.
on the next council meeting if possible.
Thanks for coming. Ms. Dovey, executive session.
Pursuant to 5 ILCS 122C1, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity.
I'll make a motion that we go into executive session.
Second.
All in favor? Say
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?